Friend?
না সেটা মানে বলা হবে
আচ্ছা,
তোমাকে
ঠিক আছে।
বলার পর তখন থেকে।
Okay, so hopefully we're live on Facebook now. So let's start the session. Good evening, fellow colleagues, young research enthusiasts, distinguished speakers, and all the participants present here. This is Zara Mustafa, Research Associate at Rapid. It is my utmost pleasure to warmly welcome you to this evening's 12th episode of our Rapid monthly webinar series, organized with the support of the UK FCDO. I would also like to extend my heartfelt thanks to all of you for taking the time to join us today, and I hope that it will be an insightful session for all of you. This month's webinar is on the impact of school entry age on the student achievement evidence from Nebraska. We are honored to have an esteemed panel of speakers with us today. Dr. Ishita Ahmed, postdoctoral research associate at Baylor University and assistant professor at Jagannath University, who will be presenting her research findings. We also have Dr. Shibir Ahmed, postdoctoral research fellow at the Department of Economics, University of Virginia, who will provide his expert analysis as the discussant. Moderating today's session is Dr. Dean Islam, research director at Rapid, whose expertise will guide us through a meaningful discussion as always. Without further ado, I would like to hand over to our moderator, Dr. Dean Islam, to begin the session. And once again, thank you once again for being here. We really look forward to an enlightening and thought-provoking discussion. Oh, also to mention, we have with us Dr. Yusuf with us. He's the executive director at Rapid. And before we move on to our moderator, I would request Yusuf, sir, to share a few words with all of us.
Thank you, Jara. Let's welcome Dr. Ishita and Dr. Sebbir Ahmed to our monthly webinar series. So, this is one of our regular monthly webinar series targeting to the young researcher, young professional. With the support from UK FCDO, and thanks Dr. Din Islam for organizing such important events. We are getting very positive feedback on these issues because we are presenting something by also a young researcher, particularly mid-level researcher like Dr. Ishita, Dr. Shibir Ahmed. And it's already not only attracted our participants from Dhaka, also there are some participants from regional university like Chattogram University, Khulna University, and other regional university. I think through this webinar, our young researcher or students, they are being enormously benefited from this. Hopefully, other presenters also will coming forward for their sharing their findings. So, without further delay, I welcome you all to Rapid and UK FCDO monthly webinar series, and hope after this 1 hour discussion, so we'll have a very fruitful discussions and outcome at the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Let us begin, and thank you so much, everyone. Good morning and good evening. So the objective of this webinar is to connect young researchers with other young researchers and to give them some idea that how to formalize the idea, how to think about methodology, and then how to carry out the empirical work. So in that context, today's presentation would be an excellent opportunity for all the young researchers to learn how to do a good paper in economics, especially in development economics. So as you already know, the today's presenter is Dr. Ishita Ahmed. And I would like to remind you that this platform is for young researchers to share their research. So if any of you are interested to share your research on this platform, you are more than welcome. You can contact us. And I would also like to make one small announcement is that if you are interested to carry out any research, Rapid would be happy to provide you some small grant to carry out your research and maybe help you in formalizing your idea or in transfer methodology. So you can take this opportunity and you can actually further enhance your ideas and implement your ideas. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let us, without further ado, let us invite our presenter, Dr. Ishita Ahmed. Dr. Ishita, you have 20 minutes or so. Then we'll have about 10 minutes discussion from Dr. Shibir. Then we'll have open discussion, and hopefully we can wrap up everything around 9. Thank you so much. Please take the opportunity, Dr. Ishita.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I'm very excited to share with you my job market paper here. And as you can see from the name, it's about Nebraska. Actually, I did my PhD from there, so my data is from Nebraska. So yeah, just a minute, I need to share the screen. দেখা যাচ্ছে? ওকে, আমি ফুল স্ক্রিনে চলে যাচ্ছি। So the impact of school entry age on student achievement evidence from Nebraska, as I just mentioned, it's about Nebraska, and at the same time, I just want to mention about, I want to talk a little bit about the school entry age. কারণ বাইরের দেশে একটা কাট অফ থাকে যে অমুক তারিখের মাঝে যদি বাচ্চা জন্ম নেয় তাহলে সে ওই বছর কিন্ডারগার্টেন স্টার্ট করতে পারবে। আর আমাদের দেশে তো আমরা আসলে এরকম ঠিক এক্স্যাক্টলি কোনো কাট অফ ঠিক মতো ভাবে মেনটেন করি না। তো আমি তাই মনে হলো যে এই ব্যাপারে একটু কথা বলা দরকার। যেমন ফর এক্সাম্পল, ইন নেব্রাস্কা রাইট নাও দ্য কাট অফ ইজ 31st of July. So that means somebody who turned 5 by 31st of July of 2021, in that case, they can start the kindergarten in the fall of 2021. So this is how the kindergarten cutoff works. And yeah, so in my paper, I have to talk about these things. That's why I just wanted to talk a little bit about this. Okay, so here is like as I'm already mentioned, my data is from Nebraska. Actually, it's from the Nebraska Department of Education, and this all the errors and omissions are my responsibility. So yeah, and as we know that there's no clear-cut indicator for school readiness. When a child is ready for school, there's no indicator for that, and often the school entry age is used as that indicator. And in the literature, we have seen that being a year older at the beginning of this kindergarten entry, it actually improves their test score. But the concern is that, does it improve the test score of all the children in the same way? Maybe it affects the class toppers differently compared to a backbencher, something like that. And another thing is that in most of the cases, those who are performing really great in the class, in most of the cases, they are coming from wealthy background. And we have seen that disadvantaged groups' test score generally fall below that of the advantaged group. So there is a possibility that the benefit of waiting an additional year to start the kindergarten, it might be disproportionately, disproportionately, maybe the whites are getting the benefit from it, something like that. So here in my work, I want to investigate these things. If entry age matters, for whom does it really matter? And does this entry age effects has an implication for inequality? তো ব্যাপারটা এরকম যে কেউ যদি 31st জুলাইয়ের মাঝে জন্ম না নেয়, যদি অগস্টে জন্ম নেয় কিংবা সেপ্টেম্বর অক্টোবরে হয়, তাহলে তাদেরকে 1 বছর অপেক্ষা করতে হবে. They have to wait to start the kindergarten for an additional year. And in that case, in the next year, they are almost like 6, so they are a little bit older. So there is a possibility that they're going to perform better. So in this paper, it's the data is from the Nebraska Department of Education. It's individual student level data. And I'm assessing the impact on the math and reading test score from grade 3 to grade 8. And to assess the impact, I'm using the fuzzy regression discontinuity design. And another thing is that I'm also using the quantile regression with instrumental variable approach to explore the impact across the score distribution. And let's have a look at my results. So waiting an additional year to start kindergarten, it actually increases their math and reading scores. So when they're waiting a year, they're a little bit older when they're starting the kindergarten. And however, the impact fades away with time, but it still exists. Even in grade 8, the impact still exists. And the impact of waiting, it actually varies across the score distributions. Those who are at the performing really great in the class, they're getting the most of the benefit from this weighting. And yeah, the impact is stronger among the top performers. So this is my findings. And now let's have a look at some literature. So my paper is related to different streams of literature. For example, it's related to the current research on school entry age, where we have found that the school, this kind of research, they have found positive impact of entry age on the achievement scores. However, all these impacts are assessed at the mean level, whereas I'm actually assessing the impact across the score distribution. Then a few studies, they have also used this quantile approach to estimate the impact of some other treatments like school quality, on the achievement score distribution or education, on the earning distribution. But to the best of my knowledge, this quantile approach hasn't been used that much in the school readiness literature. So I'm using it here. And it's also related to the achievement gap literature, and we have seen work which focus on the effect of the early childhood influence or other factors like the school standard or cultural norms on the achievement gap. And here I'm exploring the relationship between the entry age and the achievement gap. Okay, now let's have a look at the institutional background. In Nebraska, the current cutoff is 31st of July. So as I already mentioned, if a child turns 5 by the 31st of July, then he or she is eligible for kindergarten in that from that fall, like which is August. Okay, there has been a change in the policy in Nebraska in the school year 2012-13, and before the reform, the cutoff was 15th October. And before the reform and after the reform, there was also always the possibility of this early entry. And before the reform, those who were born in between October 16 and February 1, they were eligible for early entry. And now it's in between the present cutoff and the first cutoff. So those who are born in between like August 1 to October 15, they are eligible for early entry. How does it work? Actually, এখানে আমার নিজের একটা গল্প বলতে হয়। আমার মেয়ের জন্ম হচ্ছে সেপ্টেম্বর 10। তো এখানে যেটা করতে হচ্ছে যে আর্লি এন্ট্রির জন্য একটা নির্দিষ্ট টাইমের মাঝে অল্প সময়ের জন্য একটা উইন্ডো ওপেন হবে এবং ওই সময়ের মাঝে আমাকে অ্যাপ্লাই করতে হবে, গার্জিয়ানদের অ্যাপ্লাই করতে হবে for early entry, and then my daughter will be assessed, and based on that assessment they're going to say whether she is eligible to start the kindergarten that year or not, or if she needs to wait an additional year like that. And even if she is eligible for kindergarten, still I can hold her back for a year. I might think that, okay, I want her to go to the school next year so that she's a little bit older and she performs better, something like that. But it's like she has to take the assessment if she's born in between this interval, okay? And if it's before 31st of July, then there's no assessment. Then she can easily get admitted. And another thing is that in Nebraska, the school entry compulsory school age is 6 by January 1. When they're turning 6 by January 1, then they must start the kindergarten in that year. So my data, as I already mentioned, it's administrative data from the Nebraska Department of Education. And in my data, I have taken the school year fall 2007 to fall 2015. That means those who were starting the kindergarten in fall of 2015 to fall of 2007 to fall of 2015, they're in my analysis. Why I have restricted it up to fall of 2015, because I wanted to avoid the influence of COVID-19. So when they're starting the kindergarten in fall of 2015, then I can observe their grade 3 score in 2018-19, just right before the COVID. So yeah. And I do have their demographic informations on their exact date of birth, their race, their gender, their free and reduced lunch status. What is free and reduced lunch status? So এটা আমরা ধরে নিতে পারি যদি কোনো বাচ্চা এলিজিবল হয়ে থাকে এই স্ট্যাটাসটার জন্য, তার মানে হচ্ছে তার ফ্যামিলি হয়তোবা অতটা wealthy না, that's why that child is eligible for that status, so they can get free lunch from the school or reduced fee lunch from the school. That is FRL status. And another thing is that ELL status, like তাদের জন্য এক্সট্রা ইংলিশ ক্লাসের দরকার হয় কিনা, যে যদি বাচ্চার প্যারেন্টস বাসায় আরেক ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজে কথা বলে তাহলে তাদেরকে এই ELL ক্লাসটা করতে হয়। So, and my outcomes are the Nebraska statewide reading and math test score from grade 3 to grade 8. And yes, definitely, I do have some data limitations, like this data from the Nebraska Department of Education, it excludes the private school students. And also, it's not possible to track out-of-state movement. However, according to ACS, those who have started kindergarten in fall of 2007 to 2015, 85% of those in Nebraska, they are going to public schools. So even if in my data I cannot observe the private school student, but still I can capture the most of the students in Nebraska. And there are some sample restrictions that I have imposed here. So here, the school entry age, I have taken only those children in my study whose school entry age is from like 4 years 9 months to 6 years 7 months on August 1 of the year when they're starting the kindergarten. And another thing is that it's restricted to those whose kindergarten entry can be observed. Sometimes the guardian, they want to bypass that cutoff. And how can they do it? They can admit their kids in a private school in kindergarten, and later maybe in grade 2, 3, they brought them back, and they bring them back to the public school system. And I haven't taken those kids here in my analysis, so it's only restricted to those whose kindergarten entry I can observe. Okay. And here's my empirical strategy. So I'm using the two-stage list square model here. And here, the Z, it characterizes the incentive behind the delay in kindergarten entry. So it's like Z is going to take the value of 1 if some kids' birthday fall after the cutoff. So here, R is the running variable, which is the date of birth. So if the date of birth is after this cutoff, then the Z is going to be 1. So they have this, it's very likely that their kindergarten entry will be delayed because they need to wait an additional year to start the kindergarten. And another thing is that, as I already mentioned, in my data, I have the children who were starting kindergarten in fall of 2007 to fall of 2015. So I have the observations before the policy reform and after the policy reform. So before the reform, the cutoff was 15th October, and after the reform, it is 31st of July. And so I have both kind of observations. So that's why I had to normalize the cutoff in 0, and I had to adjust the running variable accordingly. And let's have a look at the covariate balance test if it shows any evidence of discontinuity. Excuse me. So what we can observe is that none of the controls show any evidence of jump around the cutoff. So it's very continuous. So we can say that the result is not coming from any of those things, like referral eligibility or their race. It's not coming from that. And now let's have a look at our first stage, which is showing the relationship between the running variable, which is the date of birth, and the probability of treatment. And here the treatment is waiting an additional year to start the kindergarten. And this is before the policy reform. And as expected, here we can see the jump around the 15th October. That implies, and right after 15th October, the probability of treatment, it becomes probability of waiting, it becomes almost like 1. So for example, from here, it's completely 1. That means those who are born after the October 15, in most of the cases, they're waiting an additional year to start the kindergarten. They're all waiting, yeah. And before the October 15, even here we can see that the probability of waiting is quite high, like it's around 0.45 or close to 0.5. So even though these kids, they were eligible for kindergarten in that school year, but still they are waiting an additional year to start the kindergarten with the expectation that in next year they're going to be more matured and they can perform better. And this practice is widely known as the red shirting. মানে যে যদি আমি ভাবি যে আমার বাচ্চা মের 15 তারিখ জন্মেছে, তো সে স্কুলে যাওয়ার জন্য এলিজিবল, অথবা জুলাইয়ের 15 তারিখ জন্মেছে, স্কুলে যাওয়ার জন্য এলিজিবল, কেননা ইটস বিফোর দ্য 31st of July। তো কিন্তু স্টিল আমি ভাবতে পারি যে না, 15 জুলাই ওর জন্ম, তাহলে ও যদি এখন স্কুল স্টার্ট করে তাহলে ও ক্লাসের ইয়াংগেস্ট 2-4টা বাচ্চার মাঝে হবে, এর থেকে বরং আমি ওকে 1 বছর রেখে দিই, তো নেক্সট ইয়ার ও স্কুল স্টার্ট করুক। তো নেক্সট ইয়ার তখন সে at the age of 6 they're starting the kindergarten. So this kind of things is happening, and this practice when even এই যে 1 বছর বাচ্চাকে রেখে দিয়ে পরের বছর স্কুলে পাঠানো, this practice is known as red shirting. And now let's have a look at what happens after the policy reform. And here, and we can see the similar kind of jump around the 31st of July. So right after July 31st, the probability of waiting, it goes up. And right after this 15th October, it becomes 1. And here we can see this chunk of observation in between these two cutoff, 31st of July and 15th October, which clearly shows that this child, even though it looks like some of the children are taking the advantage of this early entry. So even though they are born right after 31st of July, the cutoff, but still they're taking the advantage of this early entry assessment and they're starting the kindergarten, because here the probability of waiting is not equal to 1. So some of the kids are starting early. So here's the reduced form relationship. And it's the relationship between the date of birth and the standardized math score in grade 3. And just to avoid the attrition issues and like that, I'm just concentrating here in this graph. I focused only on grade 3 math score. And here what we can see that around this 15th October, the score goes up. So it looks like those who are born right after 15th October, just a second, it's before the policy reform. So the cutoff is 15th October. So right after the reform, we can see that the score goes up. That means those who are born after the 15th October, they need to wait an additional year to start the kindergarten. So they are starting kindergarten almost at the age of 6. So they're a little bit older compared to their classmates, and they're performing better. Their score is higher. And let's have a look at these things after the reform. And here we can, as expected, the jump can be observed around the 31st of July. So those who are born right after the 31st of July, they need to now, as 31st of July is the cutoff, in most of the cases, they need to wait an additional year to start the kindergarten. And as mentioned before, আমি জাস্ট বললাম যে আর্লি এন্ট্রি অ্যাসেসমেন্টের এটার উইন্ডোটা খুব অল্প সময়ের জন্য ওপেন থাকে। তো সব ক্ষেত্রে যে গার্জিয়ানরা এটা ধরতে পারে তা না, কেননা ওয়াইডলি এটা বলা হয়ে থাকে যে কাট অফ হচ্ছে 31 জুলাই। যে আমার মতো গরিব গ্র্যাড স্টুডেন্ট যারা মনে করেছে যে না, বাচ্চাকে তাড়াতাড়ি স্কুলে পাঠানো দরকার, তারা হয়তো বা এটার খোঁজ নিচ্ছে, কিন্তু আম, এখন রেড শার্টিং এর প্র্যাকটিসটা খুবই হচ্ছে। তো গার্জিয়ানরা দে প্রেফার টু সেন্ড দেয়ার কিডস ওয়েন দে আর এ লিটল বিট ওল্ডার। তো এই জন্য even though the cutoff is 31st of July, not necessarily they are starting, they are waiting. Some of them are waiting, but some of them are starting early. But that ratio isn't that much. That's why we can see this jump in the score around the 31st of July, and not that much big change around the 15th October here. Now let's have a look at my estimates from the parametric approach. And here what we get in grade 3, when when a child is waiting an additional year to start the kindergarten, in that case his score goes up by 0.341 standard deviation in grade 3, which is quite compatible with other research. And gradually it falls, but it still remains, and it's very much significant even in grade 8. And in grade 8, I find the result to be 0.256 standard deviation, and it's very significant. And after controlling for individual level controls, the estimate, it falls to 0.327, and adding the school district fixed effect, it's not changing the result that much. And my base result is this one, the one without any controls. And now the concern is that does this, we can just observe that the impact is gradually falling, but is it falling for everybody in the same way, or does it showing any kind of difference across different demographic characteristics? So let's have a look. What happens? Is the diminishing effect stronger for the children from disadvantaged household? So here the red line is showing FRL ineligible, and the blue line is for FRL eligible children. So কাজে আমরা বলতে পারি red line হচ্ছে FRL ineligible, তার মানে তারা comparatively they are coming from wealthy families. And for the children who are coming from wealthy families, for them, the impact isn't falling that much. On the other hand, those who are coming from FRL eligible families, like those who are like comparatively they're poor, for them, the impact is falling gradually from grade 3 to grade 8. And let's see what happens across the races, different races. And the blue is for the white, and the black for the black is red, and Hispanic is green. So here we can see very similar things, what we have observed here. So for the white, the impact isn't falling that much compared to, on the other hand, the black and Hispanic, for them, the impact is falling at especially for the black, it's falling at a faster rate. And I completely understand that here in grade 7, 8, I do not have a lot of observations. As I just mentioned, like I have data from fall 2007 to fall 2015, those who are starting kindergarten in fall 2015. For example, for that batch, I can only observe their grade 3 score. So I do not have a lots of observations for 7, 8. And as I just mentioned, that the diminishing effect is stronger for one group of students compared to another group of students. So we can assume that maybe this it might have some implication for achievement gap. So let's see what happens. So here's the what we can observe whenever I'm taking the interaction between weighting and FRL eligible. So we find these things. So definitely the impact of weighting is positive for math and reading scores, but these things, the weighting and FRL eligible, this is significant and it is negative for math and reading both. So we can say that those who are FRL eligible, like the children who are coming from poor background, disadvantaged household, for them, they are not being able to get the benefit of weighting that much compared to other children. And let's have a look what happens in here in racial achievement gap. And here's the interaction between weighting and white. And weighting is positive as usual. And this weighting and interaction of white, it's positive and significant for math score, but it's not significant for the reading score. So in case of math, we can say that those who are white, they're performing comparatively better. And here for this regression, I have dropped the Asians because Asians have the highest average. So when I'm considering Asians as non-white, it's kind of giving me misleading results. And so now let's have a look what happens across the score distribution. So for that, I'm using the quantile approach. So here's the yi theta. It denotes the theta quantile of the scores given the treatment here. And beta is the coefficient of interest at theta quantile. And along with the quantile regression, I'm also using the IV, IV instrumental variable quantile regression, which the model which is proposed by the Chernozhukov and Hansen in 2004. Okay, so what I find here, so this is what I get. The red line is showing the average 2SLS estimate, and the blue line is for the IVQR estimate. And before the 20th quantile, what we can see is here, the IV quantile QR approach is giving us significantly lower estimate. That means those who are whose score is at the bottom 20 percentile, for them the impact is significantly lower compared to the average impact. And in the middle here in this range of quantile, the 2SLS estimate, the mean effect is very much compatible with the IVQR estimate. And later, the IVQR estimate is higher. But here in the upper quantile, we do not have as many observations. So we are getting, like, our confidence interval is really very large here. So this is what we get. So from here, we can say that the impact is not, for everyone, the impact is not very similar. Those who are at the top of the score distribution, they are being able to get more benefit from this weighting compared to those who are the backbenchers of the class. So now let's conclude. So waiting an additional year to start the kindergarten, it increases the math and reading test score by approximately 0.3 standard deviation. And the impact of weighting, it gradually fades away from grade 3 to grade 8. But even in grade 8, it still remains, and it's quite strong, which is very much contrary to the findings of Elder and Lubotsky. They didn't find anything in grade 8, I think. And it's this impact, it varies across the score distribution. So we just observed that the class toppers, they're getting more benefit from this weighting. So the weighting is kind of through all these channels, like weighting is kind of accelerating the socioeconomic achievement gap. And in the future, I'm like working on incorporating some additional variables, like their whether the children are in the gifted program, their retention rate, and AP placement. So those are the things I'm gonna incorporate in my work. Thank you. I'm done for now. If you have any
Thank you. Thank you
yeah.
so much, Isita. That's a very interesting paper. Let me now invite Dr. Shibir. Uh, you have about 10 minutes if we can discuss on Dr. Ishita's paper. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
By the way, I'm gonna get the recording, right?
I think it's in live on Facebook, I think.
Yeah, we can share
Wow.
the recording with you. No problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Um, okay. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon, everyone. Although here it is morning. I would like to thank Rapid, particularly the organizer of this webinar, for giving me this opportunity to discuss Dr. Ishita's outstanding paper. It's really outstanding. The impact of school entry age on student achievement, evidence from Nebraska. It was truly a pleasure reading this excellent work, and I'm really impressed by the insights it offers. I will just kind of summarize the paper and share a few feedback. Let's begin with the overview of the paper. So the paper addresses, so you guys already know what she presented already. So the paper addresses important questions like how does delaying kindergarten entry affect student achievement and socioeconomic achievement gap? And to explore these, the author uses administrative data from Nebraska public schools, spanning 9 cohorts from 2007 to 16. And study employs a robust econometric method, including a fuzzy regression discontinuity design to estimate the causal effect, quantile regression to assess impacts across the achievement groups distribution, and difference in difference approach to evaluate the impact of a policy reform that moved kindergarten cutoff date in 2012. So if I want to share like some key strength of the paper, it has it offers. Sorry. Before that, okay, supposed to have another slide here. Okay, yeah. So the paper has 3 key findings. Impact of waiting time, impact of waiting on achievements like delaying kindergarten entry increases test scores by approximately 0.3 standard deviation on average for both math and reading. However, the benefits diminishes over time, especially for disadvantaged groups. And in terms of heterogeneity, the benefits are larger and more persistent for advantaged groups, including children from like affluent families, girls, and white student. And in terms of the policy reform, the change in the kindergarten cutoff date didn't significantly affect the overall achievement gap. However, it did slightly reduce the reading gap for children whose entry was directly impacted by the policy. And these findings are like highlighting complex trade-offs delay for trade-offs of like delaying school entry, and it provides like valuable contribution to the understanding of how school entry age can significantly influence student performance. And like really meticulous analysis, robustness checks, and thoughtful conclusions presented. This paper are both enlightening and inspiring. Um, in terms of strength of the paper, like it has several strength. First of all, I would like to say the robust methodology. Paper methodology is one of the strongest aspects here. Like she uses fuzzy regression discontinuity design is which is like well suited to address the selection bias, and while the quantile regression is particularly insightful. Like, it reveals how impact vary across different achievement spectrum or distribution. And the study directly informs debates on kindergarten entry age policies and highlights the unintended consequences like such as like widening achievement gaps. And also by tracking the students from grade 3 to 8, which is pretty unique, examining heterogeneity, the paper discuss a detailed picture of how delayed entry impact various groups over the time for a longer time. So that's the summary from my side, and I have some like very few feedbacks on improvement. It depends on the data availability. Like the paper first one I would like to share is like paper finds that the benefits fade faster for disadvantaged group, uh, uh, and but it could dig deeper into like why this occurs, like factors those are like affecting this fading faster or slower. Like it could be the resource access to resources or structural barriers like childcare availability or childcare cost or family structure, like either both parents are working or not. So the decision to delaying one more year, it has associated cost. So if you can go if you can dive deeper on that, like what mechanism are working behind that, that would be a great addition to this paper, I think. And conclusion could offer more actionable recommendation for policymakers, like how could early education programs mitigate the widening gaps, and also in terms of addressing the limitation, like analysis excludes the private schools and post 28 cohorts, and discussing this a little more, how it might affect generalizability. It would strengthen the findings. Just very few quick questions, kind of like how much changes in assets. You mentioned that like there are like assessment instrument shifting of assessment instrument. How much changes in assessment instrument transition from like NESA to NSCAS impact the result here, and also delaying one more year is like parenting motivations play a key role in decision to delay kindergarten entry, and can the analysis better integrate this motivation, like what are their motivation behind like delaying one more entry if your data has like this kind of variable. Definitely it depends on the data. And finally, like how generalizable are these findings to other states or regions with different demographic and cultural context beyond Nebraska? So I am almost done. So the findings have really broader implications like educational equity. This study underscored the need for targeted support for disadvantaged group who may not reap the long-term benefit from delayed entry. And policymaker in terms of policy design, like policymakers should balance the academic advantage of delayed entry with its potential to widening the achievement gaps. For further research or future study, I would say it would be valuable to explore the early intervention like pre-kindergarten programs. So we don't know like whether these children went to pre-kindergarten programs before they enrolled to the kindergarten, whether they went to another training before kindergarten, or they stayed at home. So it would be valuable to explore like that kind of early intervention, pre-kindergarten programs, and assess their long-term outcomes like graduation rates or future earnings. And the final thought is, in conclusion, I can say this paper provides really valuable insights into the trade-offs associated with delaying kindergarten entry. It also like highlights the complexity of educational policies and their varied effect across demographic groups, which is really interesting, like how it changes across demographic groups. And definitely this paper can further guide equitable policy decisions that benefit to the students. That's all from my side, and thank you everyone for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Shibir, for your very thoughtful comments. Let me now open the floor. If anyone here have any question, you can raise your hand or you can just unmute yourself and ask the question. But let me now first ask a few questions to Dr. Ishita, my comments. So a very interesting paper, very robust results. Congratulations, very well done. And the way the question is handled is really extraordinary. Thank you for sharing all this methodology. I personally learned a lot. So I have some maybe clarifying questions. So the first question is that generally, in redneck areas like Nebraska or those areas, many families actually do homeschooling. So, is there any implication for your data or your sample estimate whether like you are showing that white kids supposed to be benefited more from this skipping 1 year, but then lot of especially the poor and those conservative white parents actually they don't send their kids to schools. They prefer homeschooling. So does those results actually robust if you can consider those things? So this is a first question about the homeschooling. Now the other question, my other question is that you results show that the difference is more pronounced at later grades, like 7 or 8 or 6, but it's not very significant difference in terms of socioeconomic or racial dimension at grade 3 or 4. But I was expecting that the age difference actually it should matter more when they are younger. Uh, uh, but it should fades away as they becoming older. So, but I don't know. It's actually opposite in your results. So if you can put some light on this. And another important thing is that your running variable is the birth date. So do you think that the birth date is exogenous of unobserved exogeneity? Because birth date also depends on family planning, and family planning also correlated to it parental characteristics and parental demographics and all those things. So how you can then say that the birth date is independent of all other unobserved heterogeneity that might be causing the outcome of achieving better grade. So that's I think is a concern. So there's a one way you can actually get uh, around this issue is that if it is possible that doing the same analysis for the kids from the same family, one who are not delaying, one who is delaying, if it is possible in that way. And the last question, sorry, asking too many questions, is that what is actually the policy implication of your results? Does it actually affect dropouts at later, like school completion rate or like admission to better universities after high school or like possibility of getting a decent job after school? Is there any way to actually link your findings to this broader those actually cause greater inequality, right? And then you have like a strong policy implication that the government or the state should determine the cutoff more carefully, right? So these are my few observation and question. You can respond, you can comment, or you can just ignore them. That's also fine. But any other question from audience
So
before
we
we?
have, sir, we have a lot of people watching us on Facebook Live, and
Mhm.
there is one question from Rubab Bahar. He has written, very interesting piece of work. I was hoping for some insights into worldwide implications, especially lessons to be learned by the developing world. So this is one of the comments that is from the comment section.
Maybe
Yeah.
I discussed a lot about the policy implication. I understand that, but what I feel from my findings is that like this weighting is beneficial for all the groups of children. That's without any doubt. But it's like as I told before, like those who are coming from disadvantaged household, they are not being able to grasp this benefit in the long run that much compared to other people, other children. So the policy implication might be there. They can be given like better uh, like pre-K type of things like but unfortunately I cannot observe their pre-kindergarten or whether they're in any daycare or something like that in my data. And even I contacted with them and they said those who were going pre-K, I can only get their information, but not necessarily everybody is going to public pre-K. Because in Nebraska, there are some limitations, like it runs only for 3.5 hours. So some guardians, they prefer full-time kindergarten, and those for them, we cannot see any of them here. So the implication might be to ensure quality pre-K kind of education for uh, all groups of children. That might be something to do. And another thing is that it has been done in other studies, and I have limitations. Like there's a lot of, I think, lot of work where the parents' involvement, those kind of things has been studied. So parents' involvement is something that can definitely improve the results. But at the same time, I do understand that those who are coming from disadvantaged household, maybe in some of the cases, it's not very feasible for them. So yeah, and what the state can do, like ensuring the quality pre-K and ensuring quality public school education, that might be something to do. And Dean, I remember you were asking about whether this whether the date of birth is exogenous or not. And actually, I couldn't show it in my presentation, but in my paper it's there. The date of birth is very much continuous around the cutoff. So it's not that a lot of guardians are planning so that their kids is born right before the cutoff and they can start the kindergarten. Actually, the opposite thing is happening. People are practicing redshirting. They're waiting an additional year. So that thing is not happening like so that they are born right before the cutoff. It's very continuous. The date of birth is very continuous. Dini, I think you had some more question. I forgot it. And Shibir, he was asking about this, about from moving from Nescas to NISA. And actually, in my presentation, I couldn't get time to discuss a lot about my standardized by assessment system, year, and grade. So that change in the grading system has been taken care of. I think I just talked a little bit about those questions which I could remember, and I forgot some other questions. Sorry.
That's
If
totally
you remember,
fine.
you can just ask me again.
Yeah,
That's
don't
fine.
worry. You can just look at them later, and then if those are useful, you can actually discuss in your paper or add
Yes.
some comments in your paper. Any other
Thank
question? Saiful ask a question. Uh,
Actually, I cannot observe their IQ level, but I think there is some work where I think there is something like uh, it has been like the kind of students who wait and who doesn't wait. There might be some change in the characteristics. So I think something that I haven't done, but I should work on it. Thank you. Thank you that just let me write it down. Yeah, even though I cannot observe the IQ, but their characteristics, right? Those who are waiting and who are not waiting. It is something that I should look into, look more, emphasis more on these things.
and one related question is that when you showed the difference in terms of socioeconomic and racial dimensions, I don't know whether in your paper you actually control everything together, or you just like when you estimating the impact of like uh, is eligibility of free lunch, and then the racial control, are they in the same regression, or you just considered variable by variable? If that makes sense.
Are you talking about the gap, those socioeconomic achievement gap when I took the interaction between the waiting and FRL eligible?
Yeah, why not all of them in one regression?
Like you were suggesting that I should racial achievement gap and socioeconomic achievement gap at the same time, right?
Yes.
Okay, definitely I can try to do that.
Sir, I
Thank
have
you.
an observation on that, which is
Uh-huh.
that the income class and the racial status is positively correlated, which can affect the regression analysis. If the instrumental variable regression has been taken, then then the Ishita can run a regression analysis within IV regression analysis. So here you have to take the racial status with the income class. Then you can identify which individual student can impact in the math score or reading score. I Is it clear to you, Shita?
Not actually.
Sorry.
Can you
Can
say that again? Yeah.
Sorry, I will explain little further, which is that the racial status is positively correlated with income status, if I may not wrong. If
Like in the gap graph, the whatever I can see in the for across races and very similar thing we can see across the FRL eligibility group, right?
yes, unfortunately I missed those graph,
Oh.
but if you show those graph, then it is okay. You can go for it.
You-
Okay. Any other question or comment? Uh, I think there is no more question. Thank you so much again, Dr. Ishita and Dr. Shibir, for your time. We have learned a lot, a number of new things and new methodology. Hopefully, it will be useful for our younger researchers. We are at the end of this session. Before we ending the session, let me invite Dr. Yusuf. Dr. Yusuf, if you have any last comment on today's webinar. Okay, so let me thank you again for joining us today, and hopefully you'll join again in our next month's webinar. Let me remind you again, this platform is for young researchers to connect young researcher with people who are doing their PhD, doing their postdoc, doing interesting research, so that we can learn the methods, we can learn how to formalize the idea, and we can uh, we can be inspired to do the similar work. And Rapid also offering a small research grant. If you have interesting idea, we can support you. You can contact us. Till next month, thank you so much again, and hope to see you in our next webinar.
Thank
Thank
you,
you again.
everyone,
Have a
for
good night.
giving me the
Thank you.
opportunity to present. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.